Sam, hit us with your first poll.
All right. So, Brandon, as you mentioned earlier, you are an appreciator of comedy and of comedy films. So, for the first poll, we have when were comedies the funniest? Okay. So, each answer here is a different decade. And this is interesting, actually. The order here is not only how I presented it on YouTube, but it's also literally in, I guess, ascending order here.
Huh.
So coming in at number one, the 1980s with 61%, so kind of ran away with it.
Okay.
Then the 90s at 20%. Then the 2000s at 15%. And then in dead last, kind of, not really any surprise, started the 2010s with 3%.
Wow. Okay, so we didn't tell jokes before 80. But Brandon, what do you think about that?
So at least my personal opinion is that a lot of people are going to have certain thoughts based on like nostalgia and the way they grew up, things like that. Like people who really grew up in the 80s and maybe watched a lot of those like John Hughes movies or Ghostbusters and like Caddyshack, those kind of movies are really going to really just love those movies and probably say the 80s. I don't know if anyone's saying the 2010s just because I don't think there's that many. There's definitely some funny movies in the 2010s. Like I personally love the early 2000s. I grew up watching a lot of those movies. Yeah, exactly.
40-year-old
yes, Step Brothers. Definitely some really good ones in the early 2000s.
For sure.
90s has some really great movies as well. I don't want to say I was born in 1994, so I grew up with those movies to an extent. But yeah, I think that tracks a little bit. I would probably put the early 2000s up a little bit higher, though. Me personally.
Interesting. Nick, what do you think?
Man, I voted along the same exact lines, and what's interesting about it is that, and this is just me from a writing perspective, like they were just better writers then. I just have to give it to them. The 80s, the 90s, it's the writing, the jokes, the character development. There was just to me, it was just so much better. As time went on, and this is before social, it felt like we were getting towards more social. So what happens in social media space is you just need a quick laugh, right? Because you're swiping, you just want a quick laugh. And I felt like when you mentioned Step Brothers, man, that's just quick laugh. Like that's just like how many things can we do to these characters to make boys from the age of 10 to 19 laugh out loud? We don't need to really write these jokes. We need to slapstick the hell out of it, and it's going to be funny. And it's funny if you're that age watching that movie,
and if you have masters like that.
Oh yeah,
driving the movie
exactly at that type of comedy. But for me, that was it. It's like the 80s and then leading into the 90s, the writing, man, it's just, those are great stories. Those are great jokes. Those are great characters. And that's why we can always go back to them. I think things like Step Brothers, like, yeah, it was funny at the time, but it's like, would you go back and watch Step Brothers? Maybe if it's on and playing.
I would. But...
Yeah, right. College Kids is a perfect college movie.
It's got a cult following. I would say Step Brothers.
But it's a perfect college kid movie kind of thing, right? You put it on. But back to the drama, like the drama wasn't real. It was so contrived for the fact that it's slapsticky. But the drama in the movies of the 80s and 90s was a little bit more palpable. There was a story there that you remember that it made you feel a certain way.
Trading Places, for example.
You know, that's what I'm thinking.
That was
right.
Yeah, that was what I used as the image for the 80s.
Of course,
I think
Coming to America, even the first one.
Yeah, I think there's a word for this, and I don't think this has ever been said before, but it's like the Adam Sandlerification of comedy, right? You look at like things like, in the 90s, what he was making and then what it kind of became and how it devolved, right? So you look at like Happy Gilmore and compare that to Grown Ups and Grown Ups 2, and it's not the same thing. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
well, compare that to Click. I mean, Click is a phenomenal
Click is low-key great.
Yes.
I would agree. I would actually fully agree.
Yep.
Yeah.
Papa Bear,
Click very underrated Adam Sandler movie, I think.
Yeah, I think it's maybe the most underrated Adam Sandler movie besides was it Bad People? Bad People, I think was the name of it, where the comedians were all living together and they're all trying to make it.
Funny People.
Funny People.
Yeah.
So good, so underrated.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies.
It's one of my favorite movies, and Adam Sandler is very, very dynamic. So it sucks when it feels like him and Adam, him and his writing partner didn't try as hard as they did in the past. Papa Bear, have we been miserable since 2010?
Baby stuff.
Like, it doesn't seem like there's. I think Sam's right, and the audience is right when they polled this. Like, where did all the funny go in our lives?
Writer's strike.
Well,
There was a writer's strike in there, man, and everything just fell
That was
apart.
in 08. That was 08, 07.
That's what I'm saying.
This is the 2010s.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Wait, 2008.
For
And
10
what I'm
years?
saying, that's what I'm saying. It was after that happened, I felt like there was just a big downturn.
Nothing was the
And
same.
we never came back. We never got back to it. So
PB?
I'm gonna say never. There obviously there have been some shows that have been phenomenal since, but it's I feel like it's the swell isn't there. There aren't as many. But PB, sorry, I stepped on you.
I thought your point about social was really good, though, by the way.
that's yeah. My first immediate thought was, I wonder what the age demographics are on people who answer polls on YouTube. But the misery issue might be a factor, because I would say I would agree with how the poll came out, but I would add the last half of the 70s to the 80s, from the mid 70s to the 80s, funnier, because think about what was going on from the mid 60s to the mid 70s. We had several key assassinations. We had the Vietnam War. We had Nixon with his shenanigans. So the country was going through some misery, and it took until the mid 70s when Saturday Night Live started. Kind of iconic comedians came aboard, and so I think things were funnier from the mid 70s through the 80s.
That's a really
Richard
interesting
Pryor,
point.
Eddie Murphy.
You had the Jerk.
Yep. Three Amigos.
That movie, Three Amigos. That's a really great point, PB, because I didn't even think about the shows, because to Brandon's point about the 2000s. So you have SNL running the whole way, and then you get Chappelle's show that just blew up. And then Chappelle didn't want to do the show after the 3 seasons, and Comedy Central replaces that with Key and Peele, which wasn't just a replacement. It was like also incredibly awesome. Now in the 90s, I know we had In Living Color, and we had Mad TV, and we had the Kids in the Hall. So we had a few. Kids in the Hall have an epic skit called Ass Pennies. Editor Kate, please put in Ass Pennies right in this moment.
Oh gosh,
just not
man.
the whole thing, but maybe just the punchline to the skit Ass Pennies. It's chef's kiss. Thank you, Kids in the Hall, for making Ass Pennies. But anyway, I think it was Kids in the Hall that did that. Anyway, we had all that comedy that came into the 2000s, to Brandon's point. So it wasn't just the Judd Apatow movies and comedies like that were trying to compete with him, but these shows too. And maybe we are going, Papa Bear, through a time of international misery, and we may come out of this with an all new SNL, all new shows.
We need a new
Judd
SNL.
Apatow.
I'm sorry. We need a new SNL. I need somebody else to build me a new SNL, because I can't with this one. This is not working for me. These people aren't as funny as they were.
Well, they had to bring
then.
back Dana Carvey. They bring back Dana
I agree.
Carvey, and he immediately is the best cast member on the show. Just
That's
to your
what I'm
point, Nick.
saying. That's what I'm saying. So I need
Dana
I need them to
Carvey's
do that again.
immediately the best cast member.
We need that. We need that in our lives. I'm voting for that. Like, I'm on it. Let's make that happen.